And I'm going to pass it off to our wonderful UNL president, Ms. Carisha Moore.
Thank you, Tony. I feel like we've already gotten started with the pre-show, so to speak. Welcome, everyone, to our Disruptivate event in partnership with Cricket Wireless. We are so grateful for Cricket for supporting this event. We also have MindRight and Christopher Wolf Crusade here and Dr. Alfie Breland, who will make sure that we are able to provide fruitful conversation for all of you. We know that these are very difficult times. First, we had a health pandemic, and now we are finding ourselves in the middle of social unrest. And it's causing some issues, if we're just frank, right? Physical, mental health, and with being at Usher's New Look, a youth-centered organization that works with young people ages 14 through 24, we want to make sure we give a platform that we are disseminating information and education to you all, but also giving a platform for you to be heard. So that's what today is about. It will be enjoyable, but you will also leave with some great tips on how to take care of yourselves. So you'll hear more from me later, but for now, I would love to bring on Jermaine Spite with Cricket Wireless.
Thank you, Carisha, and hello, everyone. Cricket Wireless is honored to work with Usher's New Look to make this important conversation possible at a critical time in our society, a time when young leaders face the incredible challenge and opportunity of spurring the change needed to achieve a truly equal and just world. It's our role as a brand to lead beside you, and that includes supporting organizations like UNL that equip younger generations with the tools and resources they need to lead and create a brighter future for themselves and for the world. Our moderator is one of those leaders. He's an alumnus of Usher's New Look, a graduate of Georgia State University, and the most recent member of the news team of WPTA Channel 21 in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Please give a virtual welcome to Tony Benton Jr. You're on mute, Tony.
Yeah, I just did a whole introduction. I'm going to redo it again. Thank you so much, Mr. Spite. I appreciate it. We're very grateful for Cricket Wireless's support for this very necessary and important conversation. So thank you so much for that. Now, welcome, Disruptivators. If you don't know what that means, you are now a Disruptivator. You have entered a summit that is going to allow you to transform the way that you think, the way that you may act, or the way that you just include the knowledge into your life, into your world. So you're joining this session that shows that you're willing to invest in your life as you disrupt and innovate the world's injustices. Now, we're happy to have all of you here to join us, and we're very confident that this conversation will provide you with valuable information that will help you navigate these very trying times that we're in right now. Usher's New Look is proud to present this Disruptivate Summit on racial inequity and mental health trauma. Now, because we know that our youth needs answers, support, and hope, this platform is about you. It's about your youth. It's about our youth. So we also know that youth service providers, teachers, parents are looking for answers to support our young people as well. We know that there will be information that you can take from this discussion today. Now let's go ahead and get into it. I'd like for each one of our panelists to briefly tell us a little bit about who you are, your organization, and then the role that you play. So after that, we'll have some more opening remarks, and we'll just kind of go from there. So if we could first start off, the two to introduce themselves first, please, Miss Ashley Edwards with MindRight, followed by Dr. Alfie Breland Noble.
Sure. Thank you, Tony. Hi, everybody. My name is Ashley Edwards. I'm the founder and CEO of MindRight Health. We are a mental health tech startup, proudly based in Newark, New Jersey. And our whole mission is around advancing health equity to make sure that mental health care is radically inclusive and accessible to communities of color and low-income families. We are designed for and led by the voices of communities of color and underserved groups. And our core service that we provide to young people is culturally responsive mental health coaching all over text message. And so I just feel really glad to be here today for this super important conversation and to join a fellow panelists.
Wonderful. So my name is Dr. Alfie Breland Noble. I am typically referred to as Dr. Alfie. I am a licensed psychologist, and I also run and founded a nonprofit called the Acoma Project. And our focus is Black and Brown youth and their mental health, young adults, and communities and families of color, because we know that there are disparities faced by our young people. And my job as a researcher of many years, I'm not even gonna say how many, of many years, is to really try to find out what are the ways in which we can go about reducing those disparities by empowering young people and making sure that you have awareness around how do we define mental health, how do you take care of your mental health, even if you never get in front of a mental health professional, sit in a chair in front of someone like me, how can you take care of yourself? So it is an honor to be here, and I thank you all, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
All right. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Dr. Alfie. We'd now like to hear from Cami Rice, AKA Mama Dukes. And then we'll hear from our president, Ms. Carisha Moore. And then we ask to hear some opening remarks from our founder, Mr. Usher Raymond IV.
Thank you, Tony. And thank you, Cricket Wireless, for this opportunity and this platform to talk to our youth. It's so exciting to be here. First and foremost, I've been an Usher New Look board member since 2009. And I'm very proud to say that and feel like Usher's New Look is a family. We're all together. The kids that I first started with back in 2009 are now married with children. So that is aging a little bit, but it's an amazing return on investment, honestly, because everything that we do at Usher's New Look, it works. I mean, look at Tony, right? And look at all the kids that are here on this call. So first and foremost, I'm excited to be a part of the New Look family. I started an organization of my own, a charity, back in 2018. It's called Christopher Wolf Crusade. I lost my son in 2016 to the opiate epidemic, and honestly, he had the issue due to overprescribing doctors for a physical illness and being in the hospital over 20 times. So I'm really fighting the opiate epidemic. And what happens when you start really digging deep within the opiate epidemic, you find that there's a mental wellness piece to it as well, and they integrate together. And so right now we're developing a new position in healthcare called a life care specialist. And we have a research project going on at Grady Hospital in Atlanta. And so I'm excited to be here and just talk about the different learnings that we're doing with life care specialists in mental health and mental awareness. So thank you again for having me.
I'll start over. Carisha Moore, president of Usher's New Look, and I have been with the organization now for 8 years. I am here because of the very reason that we are here today. You know, my passion and my spark, which is what we focus on in Usher's New Look, is really bringing about equity in education and making sure that young people who look like me are able to succeed. So I am very grateful to be on this platform. Usher's New Look was started 21 years ago by Usher Raymond IV, and you'll hear more from him. And we have affected the lives of over 50,000 youth. You know, each year we are working with young people ages 14 through 24 to make sure that they are passion-driven global leaders. And we do that through a comprehensive program that focuses on college readiness, but also career readiness, which includes a lot of other things. The other piece of that is making sure that they are socially and emotionally ready for this world. And this world that we have right now, that we're seeing right now, is quite frankly the reason that we're here, because we need to make sure that we undergird them and make sure that they're prepared and make sure that all of you who are on the line are prepared. So I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you.
And without further ado, I say to you, Big Brother Almighty is in the house. But today, I'm gonna step it up a little bit. I'm gonna change my name today to the Chancellor. I am.
Let me make note.
I hope to be the fire that started the spark and continue to keep it ignited through my deepest heart work, which is Usher's New Look. I am the father of it and the founder of it, and have worked hard, tirelessly, to make sure that I've only helped to prepare the minds and the futures of all of you watching, as well as those who I'm very proud of, like Tony and so many other who are alumni and are truly the representatives of what we hope to motivate or actually just ignite. The purpose and point is to find that spark and allow that spark to lead you to a career, hopefully through education, And it also too leads back to service, most importantly, that you continue to be a contributor. I'm very proud to be a part of this panel. Very happy to be able to open this dialogue in this time, given the fact that so many are under stress and may not necessarily have access to these tools, and also to this type of conversation that may set you at ease. So without further ado, I say, let's get it started. The Chancellor has spoken.
All right, you heard it right there from the Chancellor. Let's go ahead and get it kicked off. My first question directed to Ashley, Dr. Alfie. How do you, or how should we define mental health?
I can start, Dr. Alfie, and then I'll toss it over to you, the expert. So to keep it short, I would define mental health as our level of emotional and psychological well-being that actually allows us to receive and preserve our joy. So all things that allow us to be at complete peace with who we are in the current state of our lives, I would attribute that to mental health.
I can't follow that. So the only thing I will add is that mental health, I just encourage us to think about it as if it's on a spectrum, right? And I don't mean just like autism spectrum, but I mean that it's on a continuum, right? So there's not either good health or bad mental health. It's a spectrum. And at any given time, we can be at any point on that spectrum. So that's the only thing I would add to that.
All right. So as we kick off from that question, I want to get started with something that we're trying to do with you all. We're going to take a quick poll. Real quick, if we can pop up on the screen, we want to hear from our participants, you all who are listening to this conversation. If you can go to your phone, so you may be watching this on your computer, your desktop, your iPad, or whatever thing like that. If you could try to use your phone, or if you're on your phone, we know that you're able to leave and still kind of hear the conversation. If you go to menti.com, that's MENTI.com. And then after that, you'll put in this code, 352585. You'll put in that code, and then you'll answer a question. Hold on, let me bring this back. All right. Tell me in the chat if you will. I know you guys are probably typing and doing a lot of other things right now. But the question is, type the word that best describes your feelings about the recent racial injustice that we're experiencing right now. We'll give you about a minute to do that. So you'll use your phone. You'll go on menti.com, MENTI.com. And then you're going to put in that code right there, 352585. We want to hear from you all. Please type the word that best describes your feelings about the recent racial injustice that we've been experiencing right now. We'll give you about 30 seconds. So I know that my team, they'll text me and let me know when to wrap it up. It'll be in about a minute. Let me see, I have a question in the chat. It says, what code do you put in? It's right there on your screen. I'll drop it in the chat for you as well. 352585. All right. Give you a couple more seconds. All right.
That's amazing.
We see it. Bouncing around, these are words entered from you all.
I love that.
All right, so is it gonna, okay, so it stopped.
That's amazing.
Nope, just gonna keep going, okay. So, I just gotta say it. I see some words confused, some people scared, upset, angry, broken, furious, disappointed, conflicted, overwhelmed. All these different answers right there. So when it comes to equity, how do we define equity and how it's different from equality? This is for Carisha and Usher. The question is, how do we define equity and how is it different from equality?
You know, I look at it simply. Equality means that we should all get the same thing, right? That's a fundamental premise. It's in our Constitution. But when you look at equity, equity recognizes the fact that that's not the case. It's not the case because of slavery as it relates to Black folks, right? It's not the case because of slavery. It's not the case because of Jim Crow. It's not the case because of Black codes and everything else that we're seeing here today, systemic racism. And so equity is the vehicle that we will use to get equality, right? So what are some things that need to be put in place to make sure that those who are not treated equally are treated equally? It doesn't mean that they don't have the same abilities or they're not equipped with the same things. It's just that there were some historical events and trends and policies and laws that made it so that we could not be treated equally. And so that's how I look at it. Equality is what we're trying to get to. Equity is the vehicle that'll get us there.
And I'll bookend that, speaking to the other side of it. I think that in order to know where you're headed, you must have some understanding or recollection of the past. That is the institutional history that speaks to where we are going and what the goal is. If African history is what we have spoken of, then African future is what we should be investing in. The reality that race is a defining manner of how you, or if some may speculate, that is the basis of racism. I feel that the economic power and empowerment that we employ in this time is the only way that we, and actually our institution has showed us that we can change that narrative. I've always felt this, that racism is not necessarily just an issue of race and color. It's an issue of economics. And the only thing that we can do to change that is to empower ourselves, which is what New Look is, which is what I'm attempting to ignite in each and every one of you individually as an institution. New Look is employing that idea of building future entrepreneurs, like-minded thinkers who really do want to change the world, but by way of building off of the equity that is their own, that sweat equity in their mind, that in the future will become valuable. So the equity is in you. It is of you. It comes from you. And again, as I say, we understand Black history, but Black future is what we should be investing in.
Usher, you brought up a good point in regards to, you know, being able to know where you want to go. You have to know where you've been.
Yep.
That makes me think, well, how is it? And this question goes to you, Usher, Carisha, as well as Ashley. How do we handle educating our youth and educating their peers of different races when being in this time? How do we teach the young people how to teach others to be able to, you know, understand what's going on?
Our greatest teacher is history, by the way. And great that you would say that, because part of that fundamental analysis that I think I went through as a result of seeing other cultures being able to have things that have become regimen to them, whether it be religion or their practice or the fact that they actually spend their dollar within their environment, that they invest in their banks, they invest in their institutions, they invest in things that speak to and uplift their community and the ideas of their culture, not just as consumers, but as creators, creating industries. But I think that it is important for us to not turn our nose up to the idea, once again, of this institutional history, to be able to see, if I just use any culture, say the Hasidic Jew community, right? If you look in the Hasidic Jew community, their dollar circulates and they keep it there and they keep their culture there. Not to say that they don't reach out, but the point is that they do invest in their history and they stay connected to their history. That right there is a lesson that I think all of us can learn. I think that anytime you type any religion or either any culture within your web browser, you can then go through and begin to understand how that culture continues to sustain. I think that us finding the things that are regimented in our culture, we should continue to celebrate. For instance, recently I've just been speaking to the crescendo of the effort around making Juneteenth a federal holiday is something that started for me. I mean, it's been going since 1865, but the reality for me, that inquisitive nature of me knowing myself, my history, my lineage, my ancestral background, it started in, man, I think I was 28 or 29 years old when I decided to finally open my eyes and realize that it was far more than just the work that I'm doing, but the education that I could offer myself to be able to create sustainable systems, an ecosystem that we'll be able to thrive from and grow from. And that is investing back into my culture, investing back into my history, understanding and knowing my history, and sharing it with those who may not necessarily have access or interest. I did it by way of, using my outlet. I created a T-shirt, right? And it just really, from there, it spun into so much dialogue. Do we truly have our independence? And as we inch away from Juneteenth and we inch up to the 4th of July, it is having that understanding of your culture that begins to give you a sense of pride and also to a sense of ownership, to keep it short.
Awesome. Love it. Actually, Grisha, any take?
No, I mean, the undergirding thing of what he said is educating yourself. And I don't think, our youth should feel the burden to convey that education to everyone. If we are knowledgeable about resources, sharing those resources, of course, but that's a heavy burden to feel like you have to make sure that everybody knows everything that you know. I think it's giving it to them. But the other thing I'll say too is acknowledging the fact that we all are different and we all are unique, and not looking at this world as colorblind, because I think if you do that, that kind of gets us in some ways to where we are now. So recognizing your uniqueness, but also educating yourself so that you can share those resources with your peers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would just quickly add on to that. There is no system that racism does not touch. There is no industry that does not touch. And I think one problem we see moving forward is when those who are not Black Americans feel like they are not directly impacted, or it's not really their place to take action in the way that it may be a Black person's place that they feel. But the fact is that this impacts us all, and racism is a collective problem. We are trained up in our society to really think about the individual. But I think going back to Usher's comment about cultures recycling the dollars in those communities, we need to retrain our brains and unlearn all the thinking we've had about not operating as a collective. So even throughout COVID-19, how are we creating systems for community care and supporting each other, whether it's mental health or finances or supporting people with job placement, all of that. We really need to start understanding that these systems cannot be dismantled unless we leverage our power collectively as a culture.
Yeah, all of those, great points. It kind of leads me, you mentioned, through this not only racial injustice, racial unrest, but also COVID-19 and the fact that it's still here. COVID-19 is still happening. It's still alive and well. My next question goes to Dr. Alfie as well as Cammie. How do we heal from not only the trauma that we experience there's trauma going on from seeing the protest outside, being in the protest outside, during a worldwide pandemic. The pandemic itself, I'm sure there are people who are on this, who are watching this video where they've lost someone from COVID. They know someone who may have COVID. They know someone who knows someone who has COVID. How is it to where people can just deal with and heal with these traumas? Dr. Alfie, from your background as well as Cammie, you've been through the experience of losing a loved one that's close to you, from some, what's you all's take on that?
Go ahead, Cammie.
I think that you have to ask yourself, what else is true? When all this is coming to you and all this negative energy, you got to step outside and say, what else is true? I definitely think, as far as grief, and I'm sure, people on this call have lost people, and I can only speak from personal, is that for me, it's love. And that is a lot of people on this call, right? It's having love and God. Yeah. Now you have everybody, higher power, whatever that is, Allah, Buddha, God, whatever your higher power is, that's what you have to go to in times of trauma and grief and things like that. And I'll just ask yourself, what else is true?
I like that. I also think it's really important to, now I'm going to say this as a Black woman and a Gen Xer. Part of it is recognizing that the moment that we're in is not just about the trauma of this moment. It's about the trauma of 400 years of moments like this. It's the trauma of remembering other names like Tamir Rice, right? Remembering Mike Brown, remembering Sandra Bland, remembering all the way back to Emmett Till and even before that. So I think about how powerful it is that we have the Equal Justice Initiative, right? And you have one of the Stevenson brothers who's built a monument to force us to pay attention to what came before now. So I think it's really important to say to young people, as a woman of color, as a Black woman, as a mom, I have teenagers, that this is not just about now. This is about all the stories your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents told you, and you were rolling your eyes. I know, because I did it too. And you didn't want to hear it. And now here you are in the same thing. And so when I see people out there with signs saying, we were, protesting about this expletive 50 years ago, why am I still here doing this now? It is that acknowledgement. So I think we have to start there, because, we can't fix any problems until we acknowledge what the problems are. So that's the first thing, is recognizing this is a long, 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 long history. And then I think the second thing is acknowledging that you are worthy of being taken care of. You are worthy. As Cammie said, what else is true? Well, what else is true is, I tell my young people all the time, baby, you are valuable just because you exist. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be anything. You don't have to say anything. You are valuable. And so there's so many things coming at you telling you that you're not, that your life's not valuable, that you're not worthy, that people who look like you are not worthy, they're not important. And we have to actively resist that. And so how do we do that? I talk about active coping, which I know Cammie knows very well, and which is part of Mind Right. So we teach you the skills that you need to actively cope. So the last thing I'll say is this: one of those skills is, I say you have to curate your news. Ashley already knows, I say this all the time. So don't sit, right? I know y'all with these devices, because I treat patients, and this is what I see at the top of your head because you stuck in your phone. Stop watching the news all the time. Get your little bits, get the headlines, got to hop in and hop out. So those are some of the ways that I would say we have to be mindful of paying attention to what our trauma is. Vicarious trauma, you don't have to be in it to be traumatized. You can watch it or hear about it and still be traumatized. So those are some of the things I would say is important for our young people to know.
100%.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo on something Dr. Alfie said that I think is super important to call out, this generational trauma. So in the history of Black people in the US, after Emancipation Proclamation, after Reconstruction, after Jim Crow, the first Jim Crow, after the Civil Rights Movement, there was never a period where the US was like, okay, we need to give Black people access and access. So imagine all the generational pain that has been accumulated over the years in our communities that our grandparents never had the chance to heal from, that our great-grandparents never had the chance to heal from. Yeah. But the good news about that is that it does not have to continue. And there are real tools and real places where you can break that cycle. And I think that we're going to get to that later. And Dr. Alfie just shared some really great coping skills about that.
Can I also add, as a white person, it's very disturbing. Let me just say, it's horrific. But I'm not Black. I can't say I know your pain. But what I will say is that a lot of people like me want to take conversations and turn them to action. We've been talking and talking and talking and talking, and it's okay to talk, but it's now time to take action. And I really believe that while we see so many negative things happening, what I want to leave this call is for everyone on this call to understand there's a lot of phenomenal things happening to change. Really significant things that have never happened before. And having Usher doing the things that he's doing and the voice that he is being around the world that's so respected, it's time for change, and change is happening. So what I'd like to say is vote. And we did an amazing campaign back in the day with Usher's New Look of I Can't, You Can. And we had a campaign about registering people to vote. Even if you can't vote, get those to register to vote. But as the Black community, It is so critical that you all get out and vote as a community, as a Black community, to get out and vote. Vote, 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 vote. I mean, it's for everybody to vote, right? But we got to change leadership. And that's all I'll say to that. But I just really want to praise the fact that we did do that campaign back, whatever election that was, Usher, I can't even remember. But I just want to emphasize how critically important, because Black people couldn't vote 55 years ago. I think it was 1965 that you were able to vote. And so it's just so critical. And I'll stop there. I could keep going, but I'll.
No, thank you, Cammie. I think that's something that, we see the commercials, we see people telling you to do it, we see the lines of people out there signing up, but at the end of the day, more people have to get out there and vote. Yes. More people have to be able to take that action. And Cammie, you made one point I just want to touch on swiftly. Finding a source or finding a way that you can be able to have a guide to help you throughout life. So whether or not, whatever your higher power is, find that and be able to. I had a mentor who told me, have some sort of source as you're going about life, as you're dealing with the things that are just happening every day. I started this devotional where I'm just able to devote with people every single day. And it's changed my life. It's changed other lives. And I think that it's amazing. That also leads me into my next question. We talk about voting. This is for Usher, Carisha, as well as Ashley. What are some ways that young people can get involved with bringing about justice, promoting racial equity? What are some creative ways, or what are things that young people can do to get involved?
I think they already have, by being loud in this time. But as Cammie said, the true way to see the change that you'd like is to vote. I think that campaigns like I Can't, But You Can gave us a leg up in that time where youth were not physically vote, but they could understand and educate themselves about the process, and then educate those who probably were voting for the first time, whether they had been eligible or not, to understand the process. And that's not to say that there's not going to be voter suppression and a whole bunch of other things that create an uphill battle for you. But there's so many ways to educate yourself about it. There's a campaign that I'm actually a part of right now called March on the Ballot Boxes, and it's MOBB. If you just look up, it gives you a range of ways to educate yourself about how you can vote, where you need to connect within your region. So it is that outsourcing and outreach that allows you to educate yourself for this next election, and also two primary elections on a local stage. But I feel that your vote is the most important thing that you can do outside of being loud. And I don't think you should be quiet in this time. I think that if I had to, capitalize this time, the spirit of this time is very much so being led by the youth. They've grown impatient. And while there may be fatigue from people my age or even older, you guys are really leading the charge, which is why I've always invested in you. Which is why I've always believed in you, because I know that you are the change that's going to make it happen. But the crescendo of that is using the opportunity to have a voice. Your voice is in your vote. And I know it's hard to believe it, because you're like, I don't know these politicians. Matter of fact, I don't even know. I haven't educated myself enough to know about them. And if I do vote for this person, are they still going to advocate for me? Well, it's really up to you to do your investigation, and also to go through the process. I also too think it's very important for us to stop being so reactive. I think that we need to become more proactive. I think that it's important to have conversations and dialogues like this. So for each and every young person, old, I feel like I'm young still, old or young, to educate yourself through this. I think that these types of dialogues, community sourcing and systematic communication, to just talk through your issues and converse about the things that you may find. It's not one person's responsibility. Yes, it's one person's job to go out and use your voice, but communicating with each other and restoring that trust for each other, I think, is when we not only feel united, but we feel like we can actually change it. And when you look out and you see these protests, you see that it can happen. And now turn those protests, turn those moments, that outcry into a vote. And then you'll begin to see difference.
I I agree 100%. I think the confidence that I'm seeing in our young people as they are being loud is what we need to continue to have. You know, the only thing I will add to that is going back with what we said, right? Studying that history. What were some of the movements before now? What did they do that worked? What will apply to 2020? Because it's just crazy that we're still having to fight the same issues. But what can we do right now to make sure that our children and grandchildren don't have to fight these same issues? And I think that there's power in our young people getting together to strategize, to have these conversations. And that's exactly what we did with Usher's New Look. Our young people came to us and said, look, we've been going through this since we were 13 years old with Trayvon Martin. You know, how do we change the narrative of what's going on? And they came together, youth-led conversation, shared different opinions. And let me tell you, just because they were all the same race, they didn't all have the same opinions on everything that was going on. So that's why you come together, have civil discourse, and then they really strategized and said, okay, these are the issues. There's something that we do that's called exploding the issue, where you talk about the causes of an issue, the effects, and then you develop some solutions using your spark, which is the saw to cut down that tree. But they came up with some solutions, and now they have convened a task force amongst themselves to say, okay, how are we going to attack these various issues? So I think there's confidence in knowing that they have power. You have power, young people, to lift your voices loud, study what people have come before you. Sean Lewis has a wonderful book, Walk with the Wind, that talks about him being young in the movement, the civil rights movement, and how he came up through the civil rights movement and affected change. Study those movements and decide what pieces we need to take so that we don't have to have this same conversation again.
Walk with the wind, or either it'll be blowing in the wind. You have to use your voices. You have
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, to understanding that economic power is the only thing that changes systemic racism in America. The only thing.
Yeah, I would say just we all need to acknowledge the power that we already have. And I know fear can be real for starting new things, but so for example, I didn't see mental health needs that met the needs of the youth in my community, so I founded MindRight. You are all creators. You all have the power to be creators. What are things or problems that you want to tackle in your community that you can start working towards now? We don't need to wait for anyone. We have all the talent within us to start moving forward.
And Dr. Alfie, I know we heard from Cammie at the beginning. Did you happen to have anything that you may have wanted to add to that question? Pretty much just, what call should, young people, what are ways they can get involved to bring about justice? And
the only thing I would add is just as you're doing and following all of the good advice that you've heard, I think we forget that even activists have to take care of their mental health. So I talk to a lot of young people like, I'm activist, I founded this, I'm doing all these great things. I'm like Miss Ashley, and I created an app, or I created an organization like Usher, or I've done, I'm a president like Miss Carisha. But I think sometimes what we forget is that even in doing all that, you still have a responsibility to take care of your mental health. Because one of the things I tell people is if you ever have the opportunity to fly, when they do the safety talk, they say, put your mask on first before you put it on somebody whom you need to help. And I've been saying that for years. And the concept is really, you can't help other people if you're not okay yourself. I heard this sister, Lisa Nichols, a motivational speaker, who always says you can't pour from an empty cup. That's true. There's nothing to pour if it's empty. So you got to fill yourself up first. Then you have the power to go out and be like all these wonderful people here on this call to do the things that we want you to be empowered to do.
I love that. Real quick, I'm going to go ahead and I want to get you started with poll question number 2. And Cammie, while they fill out the poll, I would love if you could, give your other resource. You guys, what you'll do is you'll use Menti again. You'll go to menti.com. That's MENTI. You'll use that code. That's 352585. Head over to that website, use the code. And the question is, how do you best cope with stress? I see we've got some answers already going in. Exercise, spirituality. How do you cope with stress? And while we're getting those answers, Cammie, could we get like a 1 minute, 30-second other resource?
Well, what I wanted to also talk about a little bit is that everybody has a resilience zone, which is like your okay zone. It's how you flow through your day, right? And then life happens and something can hit you down and take you out of your zone and put you in depression, crying, sad, or it can spike you up out of your zone and make you angry and screaming and yelling and out of control, right? And we all get there. We all go down and we all go up, and as we're flowing throughout our day. And what the important thing to recognize is you don't want to get stuck there. You don't want to get stuck down here. You don't want to get stuck up here, because you want to be in that flow of that okay zone. It's hard to be adaptable or to pivot or to compromise or have compassion if you're out of your zone.
Yeah.
And so what I do is work a lot with giving you skills that you can do yourself that keeps you in that okay zone, that keeps that anxiety at bay, so that you can be in your best mind, doing your best self.
Right.
Thank you for that, Cammie, for sure. For our responses, we see, it looks like the poll is locked. We see 25% best cope with stress with an exercise, 22% spirituality, 23% in art, being creative. Our highest one, sleeping.
Wow.
Getting sleep, how important it is. And unhealthy methods, about 6%. And then, I don't know, 1% just straight up, I don't know. Let me see. Going on from there, my next question to all of you, my last question pretty much to all of the panelists, and then we're going to get into some of our questions from our participants within our Q&A. We'll get some questions from them. My main question to all of you, and if you can keep it maybe about a minute or minute 30 or so, what is your greatest hope for our young people?
I'll start this off. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Hey, hold on. Let me just back up for 2 seconds, because I think that this is important, and it's so interesting to have received that survey back from you. Because, Doctor, you know this. Rest is the most important aspect of life. And when we really, as go-getters, are overwhelmed with information that's keeping us up. And also, too, we're trying to be active because we're running away from something. We're running away from ourselves. We're running away from our center. And I speak to Cammie on this one. It's a little bit of both of you, too. I'm pointing at both of you in the circle. Here we go. But I'm saying the idea of your state of being, your mentality, and how you choose to receive what is happening to and through you in life, whether it's negative or not. It's a process. It's a process that everything goes through as it migrates to its greatness. So you have to be patient with yourself. You can only do your best. So if there's one thing that I can tell each and every one of you, do your best. Just do your best. Do what you can. We're all humans. We're all learning for the first time. Some lessons, we've learned a few, but for the most part, we're all learning for the first time and living for the first time. Your parents are going to more than likely give you a lot of cues of things that you could potentially save yourself from in terms of time and sweat equity that you don't have to go through. So listen to them. The other side is when someone tells you who they are, believe them. Cut your losses a lot shorter by listening to yourself. You will always tell yourself the right answer. Something else that is keeping you agile and keeping you distracted is causing you to not listen to yourself. Your state is the most important part of all of what you're going to do in your life. So if I say one thing, I say pay attention to your state, be clear, and hear yourself, and trust yourself. Trust yourself.
Awesome. Let's get Ms. Carisha and then Cammie next. Is Carisha frozen? Maybe. Okay, I think Carisha might be frozen. We'll come right back. Usher the Chancellor. Okay, go ahead, Cammie.
Okay. My wish would be that we all come together as one. I think that, we're having a spiritual awareness that's going on right now in our world. And I think that we all need to come together as one. And I think that the younger generation, as Usher stated earlier, and he's so on point, that it is all about the young people making this change and this shift. And everybody's ready for it, right? I mean, everybody is ready for change. And so that is my hope, is that we come together, that synergy of one.
Awesome.
The
Appreciate it.
body achieves what the mind believes.
Hashtag.
Right. All right, I'm unfrozen now, so I will jump in. My greatest hope for our young people is that, 10, 20 years from now, that this moment will be just that. It'll be a pivotal moment for them. I often think, even my own children, right? Like, what is this doing for them? I see little signs of anxiety and things like that. My hope is that they will be okay, that they get through this time, and they will be okay. Honestly, with us giving them the resources that they need, them finding a tribe who loves them and accepts them with who they are. And I think what Usher said was so important, them having grace for themselves and for their peers as well, because everybody's going through a trying time right now, but I want them, when we look up, that they are okay.
That's an understatement. They should find another tribe because they gotten on my damn nerves.
Ashley, and if we could end off with Dr. Alfie.
Sure. My great hope is that we can recognize the inherent strength that we have in our communities. Well, oftentimes when we're talking about young people, it can be very deficit-based, but I see all of you as survivors. You are surviving systems that were designed to oppress us, and you're still here. So kudos to you all, and that's why I feel really confident about the future. And then also just that you're not alone. There are people, there are resources that can help you get through this. I mentioned MindRight. We're coaching people over text message every day, providing mental health support. And something that we're really excited to share is that for all the youth who are attending right now, you all are going to have access to MindRight for free during the summer to support you every single day if you choose. And yeah, really excited. And so I think we're going to share some information with you all about how to sign up, but essentially you just text our number 886-886. I can put that in the chat for those of you interested, and excited to support you. You're not alone.
I would just say thank you to all of you for having me join you. And I think for the young people, for all of us really, what I would say is my hope is that you will never shrink to meet other people's low expectations, and that you will always rise and shine to meet those expectations that you set for yourself.
There we go. Before we get to some of our Q&A questions, Jermaine, did you happen to have what your hope is? If not, cool. If so, you can share it.
No, I just hope, the younger generation continue to follow their dreams, meet their aspirations, and then, be the change that this world needs. I think we all hope to leave the world in a better place than we found it. And I think you see a movement now that is creating that change and moving us towards that.
All right. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. We want to add, let me see. We're going to add Neil to our chat. Let me see. We're going to add a face. You guys just let me know. Text me or so. And we're getting in you guys' questions. We will get to you all's questions for the Q&A. This has been very informative. All right. Thank you, Mr. Russell. I'm glad it's been informative. We appreciate that. All right. Neil, what's up, my man? Hey, if you could please share us. What is your question? What do you have to say, Neil?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My question is, how does racial inequality on mental health affect different socioeconomic communities during our time?
Now, Neil, is that to everyone, or did you have someone specific that question was for?
Anyone can answer it.
All right.
I can start. So part of what it does is, for communities of color in general, we know mental illness and mental health are stigmatized. So there's just that sort of blanket expectation. There's that blanket reality. I think when we think about socioeconomic status, the way that it impacts us even more, to a greater degree, exponentially, is it decreases people's access, right? Who can they get to provide them with the support that they need? So that's why having something like MindRight that makes it more accessible, I think is much better. The other thing it does is that when we look at different socioeconomic status, that also impacts the quality of care that we get. So if you have money you can pull out of your pocket and you can go pay a mental health professional, your quality of care is going to be a little different than if you don't have money to pay somebody. So I would say that in those couple of ways, it makes stigma, it increases the amount of stigma, it reduces our access, and I think in some ways it can often reduce the quality of care that we get. I hope that made sense and it was clear.
Anyone else have an answer, or are we all good? All right. Thank you, Neil. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to jump into some of our questions in the chat. Let me see. I have... Okay, I see Natasha from Denver. This is her question. How has being someone in the Black community and having a platform impacted you in a positive or a negative way? Also, can you share an experience of when you've dealt with racism? So how has someone who's been in the Black community and having a platform impacted you positively and negatively? And what's an experience that you had when you dealt with racism? It doesn't have a specific person of who it's to, so maybe Chancellor?
I mean, the industry that is at large, creates so many barriers that I think we're slowly but surely breaking down. But I'd say, seeing other people who have had a platform similar to mine and then chosen to find ways to become activists for change, whether it was Harry Belafonte, those people who I think really, really have this institutional idea around this fight, and their history says it. No matter how successful or lack there they were of, by way of smear campaign to change people's idea and view of them, they stayed the course and continued this fight. And that fight is what's inside of me and pushing the agenda forward. But I look everywhere and I see prejudice, but I also too don't allow that to dictate the reality of what I'm building. It makes me only mindful that I can change it one issue at a time. It's like, how do you eat an elephant? You got to go one bite at a time. And every bit of what you can do is in the way you perceive what you're experiencing, your state, your mental state. If you get boggled down and I'm sorry, well, I'm just going to continue to bring this back to why we're here to speak about mental health and the fact that that mental state is the only thing that allows us to continue to move forward while still having the cues and the comprehension and understanding of how we build in order to break ourselves from the barriers and the chains that have been on us for 300 years. But everywhere I look, I see it, and I don't see it just for Black people. I see it for women. I see it in this industry, in this music industry, many different cultures of people. I just specifically advocate for African-American young men because I think that we have the ability to change the reality of what has been around systematically for so long. And we do it through economics. We do it through economic empowerment and supporting ourselves. So yeah, that's my take.
Okay. Let me see. I want to direct this question to Cami or Carisha. It says, this is from Amore Campbell. It says, Amore Campbell is with Urban Health Media Project. They say, I would like to ask, how do you think the Black Lives Matter movement is being used by policymakers to make long-term legislation against police brutality and systematic racism? How do you feel the Black Lives Matter movement is being used by policymakers? Or I'll open it up that says how it can be used by policymakers. Carisha or Cami, either one of you or both?
Right, I'll just jump in. I think it is making that noise. I think it's one of the reasons why everybody is stopping and paying attention. It's galvanizing people around a cause, regardless of, how you feel about it. That is the sort of preeminent rallying cry right now. And you see that everywhere. So, I have to say that is, to me, it's making people stop and pay attention. I've seen it in commercials, on mainstream TV where I've never seen some big companies say Black Lives Matter, and you're hearing it from different people, it's a rallying cry. And you have to kind of get behind it and continue to push it forward and not be divisive, right? Because it's getting us closer to the goal.
There's power in numbers.
I would just add too that in regards to policy, I mean, if you look at the police and their unions, that's where the change needs to start. They don't have authority to fire people. They have 18,000 different police academies in this country that don't have any rules. There's no database. So if a police officer makes 9 mistakes and hops around to different forces, there's nothing to track that. And we have the technology to do that. So really, if you want to get to the root of fixing this, it's getting into the police unions and it's changing the laws and it's making them accountable so that they are red flagged in a database. None of that exists today. That's why they can leave one force and go to another force. And it's insane that we don't have that with the capabilities that we have in this country. So policy change, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of confusion right now. I had a white friend of mine call and say, I really want to support Black Lives Matter, but they want to defend they want to defend the police, and we've got to have police. Like, who's going to come take care of us if we call 911? And I think there's a lot of confusion that if I'm for this, that means I'm against that. And there are good police. There are good Black police that are afraid to go to work. It's not that all policemen are bad. Are there a lot? Yes, absolutely, 100%. Does it need to be reformed? But I think there's just confusion. People don't know the right things to say, the right things to support, and they're afraid, because you do have to have some kind of order in the country. You have to have some police. So, I had a Black friend of mine that's a policeman that called and said, we are supposed to go and protect protesters today that are trying to defend the police. Like, how am I don't understand that. Like, I'm supposed to go do that. And so even, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's a little bit confusing. But that's what I think is regarding the policy. Sorry, that was a long answer.
Oh, no worries. We have two more questions. This can go to Ashley or Dr. Alfie, but if anyone else feels to chime in, please feel free. What books do you suggest on mental health or anything that will be stimulating to read in general? I see an example of The Alchemist, but what's a book that you recommend people could read, begin to learn more about whether it's mental health, trauma, physical health, anything like that? What's a good read you would suggest?
So the first book that comes to mind is a book about anxiety. I can't remember the name of it, but the author's name is Dr. Angela Neal Barnett, and it's specifically for Black people dealing with anxiety. So that book. Another one is a friend of mine, everybody knows him, Charlemagne the Guy. He wrote a book called Shook Ones. Now, I don't know if that's good for kids, but he talks about his experience with anxiety and sort of normalizes the conversation. There's a very old book from a sister named Terry Williams, who's very famous, was a publicist and had her own PR firm called Black Pain. I think that is acceptable for kids, but I would say anything that gives you an eye into what anxiety, depression, different kinds of mental illness look like and how it shows up, in this case, for Black people and people of color. Because I think I want my young people to know anxiety doesn't always look the same way in everybody. Depression doesn't always show up the same way in everybody. And sometimes things like, what's the right word, assertiveness, or some people might say aggression, is like a mask for depression, because that's more acceptable to be, to buck up at somebody than it is to shrink. So for me, it's the kinds of books that allow that kind of illustration. And then the other thing is, any kind of book that teaches you coping skills. There are lots of them out there. If you just Google or get on Amazon, you can find books that talk about how to cope with different things. Something real short, something that gives you active skills that you can use immediately. Those are books that I would recommend. I've written 2, but they're more academic and kind of boring, so I wouldn't even recommend those.
It's a bit of a life coaching, but thank you very much, Dr. Alfred. There's a book that I wrote the foreword for by author Sherry Riley called Exponential Living, which really is a eye-opening book for you. Something about the metrics of life and how we function is in side of the Four Agreements. I think that that's another book to read to give you some really good tips. But you're right. I think that the more if you're able to at least identify with the word of your anxiety, and then maybe you Google that begins to lead you down a rabbit hole where you can begin to find out things that have been written that might give you that might set you at ease, and maybe even lead to books that you may be interested in. So if anything, educate yourself. And if you want to fix the problem, you gotta start here. Got to start, and try your hardest to figure out what is the source of your anxiety, right? And realize that whatever it is not your fault. You are not to blame. That the true source of all of our suffering is in our minds. It is all self-centric thinking. And I know that sounds odd. Wait a minute, you mean to tell me all of the stress that I'm feeling in my life has something to do with how I feel? It does, 100%. How you're looking at it and how you're narrating the story in your mind based off of what you feel. Anxiety that may be placed there as a result of something that happened to you in your life that you may not even remember. Things that you told yourself or the practices that you've taken up as a result of just the environment that you come from or where you are. But I always say, go inside, and any change, good or bad, starts right here, individually.
I love it. My the last question I have, and then before we have an announcement from Mr. Jermaine, I'll ask Usher for any final remarks. But before we get to that, this could go to anyone, maybe one or two responses. How do we educate our young people, our 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, our little sisters, our little brothers, our children, our nieces, our nephews? How do we talk to them? How do we teach them at such a young age about what's going on right now? I know, Usher, you're raising boys. I mean, this can go to anyone.
Well, first I want to say to the panel, thank you so much for being disruptivators in your heart and offering your expertise, your time, and your care for each and every person that's on the other line. Doctor, my fearless leader, and also to board that is represented on this call. Tony, so much to you for always being a shining example of what we represent from New Look. Jermaine, as well as Ashley, thank you so much. Camera and everybody else that's a part of it that might just be tuning in to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do and staying on time, which I'm causing us to be over time right now. But anyway, I had to say that. I thank each and every one of you guys so much for caring this much. There's hard work and then there's heart work. This is hard work for me, and I'm happy that I can share it with you and share it with them. The one thing that I would say, and then I'll let you guys take it from there. The example starts with you. Your little ones are watching what you're doing, not just what you're saying. They're watching what you're doing.
Anyone else?
For me, I would say, first of all, thank you for everybody as well on the panel, but I would say checking in with them, right? And helping them become self-aware even at a young age so that they become aware of the feelings that they're having. I have to go back to Dr. Alfie. I have to check my kids with how much of the news they're taking in, because I know even though it's not happening directly to them, indirectly, it can impact them. But also literature, right? Reading to them about their history is important. We cannot allow them to grow up, and I will say my kids are growing up in a very different environment than I grew up in, right? So they're not automatically learning some of the same things, but it's incumbent upon me to make sure that they know their history.
If we can maybe get one more response. Or not?
I can jump in.
Okay.
As you're building your families, make sure your home is a space that is safe enough for your children to actually express the full realm of their emotions. I can't tell you how many young people we are texting who live in huge families, 10 people in a house, and feel completely alone. So just be so conscious of that. How can you be in community, not only with your friends, but with your kids, and really hold that sacred space to facilitate those conversations?
I think that this is definitely a continuation of allowing the conversation to happen. I thank Usher's New Look for allowing this conversation to go about. I thank Cricket Wireless, all of you as panelists. You know, this is something that we needed to be able to discuss. And I think that one of the things that a lot of us miss is the fact of the importance of having the conversation, having the talks that are uncomfortable or, you know, could be very knowledgeable and very helpful to the next person, to the next generation, to your peer, or so on and so forth. So I appreciate you all so much for allowing me to moderate this. Big brother, Chancellor, thank you for allowing this. Much love to you, big bro. And, you know, it's always a blessing to be able to be a part and to still give back even as an alum. Thank you, all the panelists. I appreciate it so much. I'd like to bring it back to one of the partners for this event, Mr. Jeremy Spite with Cricket Wireless. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Tony. Great job moderating. I think you picked the right field to go in with journalism. So look out for my call when I have an event in Fort Wayne. I want you to answer, okay? You know, the reason we sponsor this event is really what Usher said. There's hard work and there's heart work. And for us, this is both. This is a part of our Cricket Cares social responsibility platform. And our goal is to build healthy, happier youth, human connections for happier youth. So we appreciate being a part of this. For the past 21 years, as Carisha said, the New Look has helped youth find their passion, become leaders, and transform their futures. So on behalf of Cricket Wireless, our employees, and our authorized retailers, we're donating $50,000 to help you continue that great work you are doing and to empower young people across this country. So we appreciate all the work you do. Thank you, Usher, for allowing us to be a part of this and helping you build and continue what you're doing.
Woo, thank you.
Thank you.
That's fabulous.
Thank you so much for your committed connection and also to partnership. We really look forward to doing major things, and we really appreciate this.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure working with your foundation. You know, we also know the stigma around mental health and barriers to get support are real. We're committed to providing those resources that help youth overcome challenging times. So that's why Cricket Wireless and our AT&T are donating $100,000 to Mind Right Foundation to help further its mission of making mental health support racially accessible and inclusive of communities of color and low-income families. So thank you, Ashley, for being a part of this. We look forward to continue working with you, and thanks for your gracious offer to provide support for those teens who are on the call today.
Thank you so much, Jermaine and Usher's New Look, just for this partnership. It is so refreshing and encouraging to be on this call with so many people aligned in this fight and this movement. So on behalf of our team, we're super grateful.
Thank you. And again, Carisha, it's been a pleasure working with you and the New Look team. This is a great event, much needed conversation that must continue. We appreciate the New Look Foundation and the 21 years. So I'm not going to age you, Usher, but I think you're probably in your 20s. We're around the same age, so we're good to go. But when you started this, so we appreciate all the hard work you put in on this, and we're happy to be a part of today's event. So thank you.
Don't judge me for my grades, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I have them too. This is what teenage girls get you. See, you have boys, so you don't have grades too much.
Jermaine, thank you so much. You know, we work with a lot of corporations and a lot of people, right? And we don't want it to be just transactional. And I can truly say this is relational, and we are partners in this work. So we really appreciate you on behalf of our board. Our founder just told you thank you on behalf of all the students that we serve. That the money is going to go a long way, but most importantly, we are excited about the partnership that will continue. We've been a family, y'all. Y'all don't know behind the scenes for the last few weeks on calls and working together and sending text messages, and it's just been a pleasure. And to our panelists, thank you so much. As we said earlier in our pre-show, you know, we will definitely be working together. We can't allow this talent and this expertise that's here today to escape. So virtually, and when we get back to in-person, we'll be definitely working together. And thank you to our Usher's New Look team, who you all don't know, they're little people behind the scenes here, and they're making it all happen and making sure we pop up at the right time. I appreciate each and every one of you. And so with that, I would like to end it. We said we're about youth, right? And we have Denise Ann Shields, who will come on, and Shanice Andall, I believe, will be joining her to just give you all a little bit of information on what our Usher's New Look youth are doing so that you can stay connected and continue to be a part of it. Denise Ann?
Hi, everybody. I have been sitting here and listening on this call, and I am just so in love with everything that everybody's been saying. I'm loving this conversation. I'm also going to introduce Shanice. She's on the call with me as well.
Hi, guys. I'm at work right now, so I look a little rough, but supporting from afar.
She could not miss this moment.
Right, no, she couldn't, because like what we're about to say, like she has to be here.
I was working on my break and everything.
Yes, for real. So tonight we talked a lot about solutions. And here at Usher's New Look, this is going to be the result. So me and my peers knew we had to take action when injustice arose yet again in our country. So me and my fellow MIT, Shanice, here from New York, partnered with the staff to hold an open conversation about the presence of systematic racism in our country and the actions us, the young revolutionaries, had to take. Once we felt the momentum and the synergy and optimism and the pain on the call, we knew that we had to take it a step further. So without further ado, baby drum roll. I am here to officially announce the beginning of the Racism and Loss sector of Usher's New Look Foundation. This new edition will give, round of applause. This new edition will give the youth the space and opportunity to educate themselves on topics that the traditional education system has hidden. We will be the ones to enact change. We know that it's our time. And the only way to effectively do that is through power, the proper knowledge, well, of course, power, but proper knowledge and education. So first I'm gonna turn it over to Shanice if she wants to add anything before we
basically what we do when we PBS is we give the students an opportunity to explore the issue. So we basically have them identify an issue within their community, and we give them the opportunity to say, okay, what's the cause? Like, why do we have this issue, and what can we do as, youth in middle school or high school? And what we did on our last call, where we gathered, all the people in Usher's New Look, we did the same thing for ourselves. We took a step back and we said, okay, well, this is the obvious issue affecting us. What can we do? And we came up with a great list of causes and effects that, the social injustice is going on every day, has for us. And I feel like this is a really great opportunity for us to do more as an organization. We're an organization primarily of people of color. That's who we see every day when we go to our meetings, when we're on our calls. This is something that affects all of us. So what we're doing now is we're giving an opportunity for the everyday youth that we interact with. We're giving them an opportunity to go beyond what traditional education has taught them. We're giving them an opportunity to learn about the history that is often hidden for them or sugar-coated or watered down. And by doing this, we're giving them the tools to be the leaders that we're trying to be now. And whatever issues we don't get to solve with our generation, we're giving them the tools to go beyond what we can do so that they can do it themselves and their children can do it, and so on and so forth, until we reach a place in this country where we're all comfortable and we all feel like we're equal and we all contribute enough and get enough back. So that's what we're doing right now. We're really excited, and it's really going to impact a lot of people. And that's basically all we're doing with New Look. We're just impacting people in ways where they leave with more knowledge than they came with. And yeah, that's what we're doing, and we're excited, and it's going to be great.
Yes, I'm really, really excited as well. Thank you so much, Shanice. And thank you to everybody, really. Thank you, Carisha, Usher, and Tony. Thank you for giving us the space and the opportunity to talk, to have these conversations. Because that means a lot, and that's how this started, and we're going to finish it. So I'm really excited about that. Also, thank you so much to Cricket Wireless for partnering with us. And to all the panelists and everyone who was on the call, all the participants, shout out to everybody on the front lines protesting. I encourage everybody on this call to take something that you learned today and implement it in your own life. That can be sharing motivation, sharing knowledge, signing a petition, donating to a bail fund or GoFundMe, emailing your officials. Call these people that we voted for and tell them that we will not stop until justice is served and that a system that supports racism is disbanded. Everybody has a role to play. So that's it for me, guys.
Everybody keep the protesters in your prayers, for real. They're really putting hard work out here, and they're not 100% safe. People are coming at them for no reason, and they're not being protected by the people who we pay to protect them, So please keep them in your prayers, send out positive thoughts and all the good vibes.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. Real quick before we say goodbye, everyone. Since we've been talking about tools, MindRight and UNL might have you covered on some of those resources. So I'm gonna pass it real quickly to Ashley.
Yeah, so just to reiterate, we are offering MindRight for free to the summer to youth attendees who are on this call. And so to sign up, it's super easy. All you have to do is text our number, 886-886, at the bottom of the slide. You can text anything like hello. And then if you're asked for a referral code, you just type in Usher's New Look 2020. And once you sign up, you'll have access to a MindRight coach who is texting you 7 days a week, 365 days a year, well, for the summer to start, and just here to support you through good and bad days. So let us know if you have any questions. You can just text that number, 886-886. Thank y'all.
And then Ms. Carisha, any last things? You're muted.
Take advantage of this resource. I am just so elated that we were able to convene today. Thank you again to everyone who took the time to participate. And thank you again, Cricket Wireless. We appreciate you.
All right. Well, you guys, I think that's it. You know, I'm still recovering from Usher's lit performance at the BET Awards the other night. So I'm going to end this adieu. All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it so much. Real quick, before we leave, can all the panelists, can you smile? We can take a quick selfie, or I'm going to screenshot this. Okay. Hold on. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Got it. All right. You all have a good night.
Share, right?
Yes, I'm going to share that for sure.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Posing for another.
I'm going to take another one, too. There we go. Hold on. There we go. Hey, 1, and love it. All right. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you all for tuning in. Share this with someone. Yes. Share it. Share your information. Vote. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.